If you met me today, you might notice some things about me. Maybe the way I talk, the way I get excited about certain topics, or the way I sometimes struggle in situations that seems easy for other people. But growing up, nobody really knew why I was different. Honestly, I didn't know either. Looking back now, autism wasn't something that suddenly appeared in my life. It was always there. This is what autism actually felt like for me growing up. Growing up, people often describe me in ways that never felt quite right. I was called dramatic, spoiled, too sensitive, sometimes even rude or difficult. And I had a lot of tantrums, not just as a little kid, but even into my teenage years. To other people, it probably looked like I was overreacting, like I was making a big deal out of things that seemed small. But what nobody could see was how overwhelmed I felt inside. There were situations, unexpected changes, and emotion that felt much bigger to me than they seems to be for everyone else. At the time, I didn't have the words to explain any of it. I didn't know why certain things upset me so much. I didn't know why I felt different. I just knew that sometimes everything felt too much. And when I reached my limit, it came out as crying, shutting down, anger, or what people called a tantrum. As I got older, I started hearing those labels over and over again. You're too sensitive, you're being dramatic, why you can't, you just let it go. After a while, I started believing those things about myself. I thought maybe I really was difficult, maybe there was something wrong with me. But looking back now, I realized that many of the things people saw as bad behavior were actually signs that I was struggling with things I didn't understand yet. I wasn't trying to be difficult. I was trying to cope with a world that often felt overwhelming. School was complicated for me. A lot of people assume that if you're smart, school should be easy. For me, it wasn't. I could spend hours focusing on things that genuinely interested me. I would deep dive into topics and learn everything I could about them. But when it came to schoolwork, especially reading long texts or studying for exams, I struggle more than people realize. I have ADHD, predominantly inattentive type, and that's what made school even harder. I would read the same paragraph over and over again and still have no idea what I had just read. I tried studying for exams, I really did, but it felt like no matter how much effort I put in, the information would disappear. I stayed up late reviewing notes, trying to memorize everything. Then, I'd wake up the next morning and feel like my brain had erased half of it. It was frustrating, it was exhausting, and honestly, it was depressing. Eventually, I stopped studying as much for some exams because I felt like there was no point. Why I spend hours sacrificing sleep if I was just going to forget everything anyway? Looking back, I wasn't lazy. I wasn't unmotivated. I was struggling with challenges that nobody around me fully understood, including me. There were times when I became so desperate to pass and keep up with everyone else that I cheated. I'm not proud of that, but it's a part of my story. At the time, it felt like everyone else had been given a manual for how to succeed in school. and I was trying to survive without one. What people saw was a student who wasn't trying hard enough. What they didn't see was how much energy I was spending every day just trying to keep up. By that time I got home, I was often exhausted, not just from learning, but from trying to focus, trying to remember, trying to fit in, trying to be the student everyone expected to be. Friendship was always confusing for me. I wanted friends, I care about people, but sometimes it felt like everyone else had received a rulebook that I never got. I didn't always know when to join a conversation. I didn't always understand jokes. Sometimes I talked too much about things I was interested in. Other times I stayed completely quiet. It wasn't because I didn't care. It was because I was trying to figure everything out. I was also incredibly gullible. Back in high school, my friend used to tease me about it all the time. I would believe these things so easily, and looking back now, it's actually kind of funny. One thing about me is that I don't usually make new friends easily. New connections can feel scary. There's always that uncertainty of not knowing what people expect from you. Oddly enough, I can confidently talk to complete strangers, but turning those conversations into actual friendships has always been much harder for me. As I got older, friendship became even more complicated, especially during difficult periods of my life. When I'm overwhelmed, burnout, or emotionally shutting down, I tend to disappear. Not because I don't care about people, not because I don't love my friends, but because my brain goes into survival mode. I stop answering messages, I ignore calls, I isolate myself from everyone. One of the biggest examples of this happened after my father passed away. At that time, I was in my party girl era. I was always out with my friends, going to bars, traveling, making memories, and then suddenly, everything stopped. I disappeared. I stopped going out. I stopped traveling. I buried myself in work. For months, some people had no idea where I was or what was happening to me. When my emotion becomes too intense, another side of me comes out. I lose my filter. Sometimes I say exactly what I'm feeling, even when those feelings are painful, even when the words might hurt someone. At the time, it feels impossible to hold them back. And because of that, I lost some friendships along the way. That's one of the hardest truths I've had to accept. But I also learned something beautiful. Some people stay. Some people give me space when I disappear. They didn't take it personally. They didn't force me to explain myself when I couldn't even explain it myself. The truth is, back then, I had no idea what was happening to me. I didn't know why I would suddenly withdraw from everyone. I didn't know why answering messages felt impossible. I didn't know why I needed so much time alone just to feel okay again. I thought something was wrong with me. And honestly, I think some people around me were confused too. Years later, after my diagnosis, I finally started to understand those patterns. But back then, I had no explanation. And yet, the friends who truly cared stayed. They gave me the space I needed, even when none of us understood why I needed it. And when I came back, they welcomed me back. No judgment, no conditions, just friendship. For a long time, I thought friendship meant always being available, always showing up, always being present. But now, I think true friendship is something different. Sometimes, true friendship is giving someone the space they need and trusting they'll find their way back when they're ready. The friends who stay taught me that, and I will always be grateful for them. Family is probably the most complicated part of my story. When people talk about childhood, they often talk about feeling safe at home. That wasn't always my experience. Growing up, I was often seen as a difficult child, the dramatic child, the sensitive child, the child who was always causing problems. My parents worked hard and were often busy. So much of my childhood I was left with caregivers or relatives. As I got older, I spent even more time with extended family. Some relatives were kind to me. Some made me feel loved and accepted, but others didn't. And as a child, I didn't understand the difference. I thought maybe I deserved the way I was being treated. I thought maybe they were right about me. Maybe I really was a bad kid. Maybe I really was difficult. Maybe there was something wrong with me. Looking back now, I realize I was experiencing something I didn't have the words for at the time. But as a child, I only knew how it felt. I felt unwanted, misunderstood, like I never quite belonged. That was also when my depression began. Even as a child, I remember having thoughts about wanting to disappear. It felt like escaping life would be easier than continuing to live with the bullying and misstatement I was experiencing, even inside my own home. My parents didn't know what I was going through. They were working hard to provide for our family, and I never really knew how to tell them. When I was around 13, I started realizing that what was happening wasn't normal, that the way I was being treated wasn't okay. And honestly, I think my friends helped me survive that period of my life. School wasn't always easy, but friendship gave me something I wasn't getting elsewhere, a sense of safety, a sense of belonging. That's why, growing up, I often felt more comfortable being with friends than with my family. I remember my mom would often tell me, "You're already so grown up. Why are you still acting like that?" At the time, she was referring to what she saw as tantrums. Neither of us knew that what I was experiencing were meltdowns. Neither of us knew I was autistic. We were both trying to make sense of something we didn't yet have words for. My relationship with my family didn't really begin to change until I was 27. That was the year we lost my father. Losing him changed all of us. It changed me. Somehow, through grief, we became closer. For the first time, I started spending more time with my family. It wasn't an easy shift, but it was the beginning of something different. Discovering myself. As I got older, I became very good at hiding parts of myself. I learned how to copy other people. I learned what to say, how to act, when to smile, when to stay quiet. People call this masking. And for many autistic people, it becomes second nature. The problem is that pretending to be someone else all day is exhausting. Eventually, that exhaustion catches up with you. Then came work. For many people, work is challenging. For me, it often felt like balancing two jobs: the actual job and trying to navigate all the social expectations around it. Understanding workplace culture, reading between the lines, knowing what people really meant, small talks, meetings, office politics. Sometimes the work itself was easier than figuring out the social side of it. There were also struggles that people didn't always see. Simple things like replying to emails could sometimes feel overwhelming. There were moments when I would freeze, avoid responses, or struggle to process what I needed to say. And when I couldn't manage everything internally, it would sometimes come out in ways I didn't understand at the time. I would get overwhelmed, my emotion would become too intense, and I didn't yet have the language to explain what was happening to me. One of the most difficult moments in my career happened during a professional meeting. I became completely overwhelmed. I cried. I raised my voice. It was a meltdown in a setting where I expected to stay composed. After that, I received a written reprimand. At the time, I didn't understand what happened to me. I just knew I had lost control and I didn't know why. Looking back now, I understand it differently. But at the time, I only saw it as a failure. Despite all of this, work also helped me discover my strengths. Attention to detail, creativity, deep focus on things I'm passionate about. The same brain that struggled in some areas could also excel in others. Today, I understand myself better than I did when I was younger. Autism isn't something I need to fix. It's a simple part of how I experience the world. Some days are easier than others. Some situations still feel overwhelming. There are still moments when I get drained, overstimulated, or emotionally exhausted without fully understanding why in the moment. But now, I have language for it. I have awareness. And I have compassion for myself in ways I didn't have before. For a long time, I thought I was just too sensitive, too emotional, too difficult, too inconsistent. But now, I understand that there was always a reason behind the things I struggle with. Even the moments I used to see as failures, I see differently now. The shutdowns, the overwhelm, the meltdowns, the way I would disappear when everything felt too much. The way I struggled to keep up in environments that expected me to function in ways my mind wasn't built for. All of it finally has context now. And that understanding has changed everything. Not because my life became suddenly easy, but because I stopped fighting myself. I stopped seeing myself as broken and started seeing myself clearly. If you're watching this and you've felt different your whole life, you're not alone. And if you're still trying to understand yourself, I hope my story helps you feel a little less lost. Hey, thank you for listening to mine.